Hi, everybody. This is Miss Wade, and I'm going to be talking today about permutations and combinations, which is our probability day 2 notes. So the first thing you need to know about before we talk about permutations and combinations is factorial. And you may have seen this before. It looks like an exclamation mark, but what it does is it starts with whatever number it is, like 5, for example, 5 factorial. It takes it and multiplies with every single number going down all the way to 1. So it's an exclamation mark. And like I said, it basically means to multiply all consecutive whole numbers down to 1. So if I have 4 factorial, it's going to be 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is 24. Okay, so that's the idea of factorial. So we do a few things in this class of factorial. We need it for permutations and combinations, but we also do just some basic calculations. So I'm going to go over this first one with you. So 5 factorial over 3 factorial. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see. So you can just do this on your calculator, but then when you get to problems like number 3 and 4, you can't use your calculator. You have to actually use the properties of factorial. So I'm going to do it the long way for now. So 5 factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And then on the bottom, 3 factorial is 3 times 2 times 1. What you should notice is that these cancel, and those cancel. So really it's just 5 times 4, which is 20. On your calculator, under the math option, if you go all the way over to PRB, probability, you will see factorial, okay? So you can do 5 factorial, which is 120, divided by 3 factorial, and it gives you 20. Okay, so that's using your calculator. But like I said, you won't be able to do problems like number 3 and 4, which is most likely the ones we're going to give you without a calculator, with a calculator rather. Go ahead and pause the video and try number 2. Okay, hopefully you did that. So I have 7 times 6 times 5 times 4, 3, 2, 1 over 5 factorial. So those cancel, and you just get 42. Another way to write it is 7 times 6 times 5 factorial. And then you see that you have a 5 factorial on the bottom. And then you don't have to write 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because duh, we all know what that is. So you can do it either way. It's fine. All right, let me show you how to do this with variables. This is where it's important to know how to do this without a calculator. So if you have n factorial, think about it. Every time you're going one less. So n is what you're going to start with, but the next one has to be n minus 1. And then the next one has to be n minus 2, etc., etc. On the bottom, n minus 1 factorial is what you start with. We start with n minus 1, and then you go one less than that. Well, n minus 1 minus 1 is the same thing as n minus 2. So notice the next one's going to be n minus 2. And then if I do that minus 1 again, I get n minus 3. So that's how I get the next one, etc., etc. So notice, because this keeps going, it's going to cancel, and my answer is just n. The other way to look at this is n times n minus 1, and then it keeps going, and then you have an n minus 1 factorial on the bottom in the denominator. So then you don't have to write everything out, because once you hit a factorial that cancels with what's already there, then you're good. Okay, why don't you pause the video and try to do number 4, and then come back and see how it's done. Okay, hopefully you guys gave it a try. So on the top, I'm going to start with n, and the next one's going to be n minus 1. But on the bottom, I have n minus 2. So I got to keep going. The next one's n minus 2, and then n minus 3, n minus 4, n minus 5, etc., which is essentially n minus 2 factorial. I'm not going to write them all out because I know that's going to cancel. So then I just get n times n minus 1, and then you should just simplify that. So you get n squared minus n. Okay, so that's the basics of factorial. So now we're going to go over permutations and combinations. Okay, permutations are finding out how many ways things can happen where order matters. Combinations is a way to figure out how many ways things can happen, but where order is not important. So permutations are whenever things are, for example, like line up, on a shelf or something where order matters. Where combinations are like groups of things, groups, teams, committees, basically where order doesn't matter. So if I'm talking about like a group of people or like a team or something like that where it doesn't matter, I'm just grabbing a bunch of people or grabbing a bunch of things, it's a combination. But if I want things in a particular order, then it's a permutation. So that's important because the formulas are similar, but you need to know which one to use. So permutations is NPR, where N and R are subscripts. Okay, and the formula is n factorial over n minus r factorial. And what do these things mean? Well, n is how many to choose from, and r is how many spots to fill or how many spaces you're trying to fill or whatever. Okay, now combinations is NCR, so they look really similar. The P is for permutations, the C is for combinations, and the formulas are almost identical. They start off the same, and the only difference is it has this little r factorial additionally on the bottom. Other than that, they're essentially the same formula. Okay, another way to write this is you can write it like this. That's the same thing. This is n choose r, right? We say this n choose r, which is the same thing as combinations. Okay, and then this is the same thing for the n and the r. N is how many you have, and r is how many you're picking. It's the same. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to calculate this. So I'm just going to do one of these, one of each, because it's kind of very repetitive. So I'm going to do number 3, and then I'm going to do number 4. Okay, and then we can post some of the answers later to make sure, or you can try it yourself in the notes. So n in this case is 7, and r is 3, and it's a permutation. So it's 7p3. And so I'm going to write the formula here for you. So the 7 goes on top, 7 factorial over 7 minus 3 factorial. So 7 factorial over 4 factorial, and then I'm just going to simplify. 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 factorial, and those cancel. And then when I just multiplied those on my calculator, I have 7 times 6 times 5 gives me 210. So it's 210 possible ways. Okay, so that's permutations. And now I'm going to do a combinations. So this 10 choose 8 is the same thing as 10C8. And remember, the formula for this one is n factorial over n minus r factorial. So they're almost identical. So in this case, my n is 10 and my r is 8. So it's going to be 10 factorial over 10 minus 8 factorial, 8 factorial. So it's just a little simplifying. So I'm going to rewrite 10 factorial all the way down until I have an 8 factorial so that I can cancel those. So that's going to be a 10, a 9, and then 8 factorial. 2 factorial is just 2 times 1. And those are going to cancel. So it's 90 over 2, which is 45 possible ways. Why don't you go ahead and try 1 and 2? And I'm just going to tell you what the answer is here so that you can double check and make sure you did it right. But I'm not going to do all the work. It's the same thing. Okay? All right. I'm going to stop this video and I'll make another one for the back side of this. So finish up 1 and 2 and then do the other video for the back side of the notes.